Well, I am one of Northern New England's volunteer recruiters. I focus on Maine and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Otherwise, I leave the rest of our Northern New England region to Erica.
Yes, so I'm our second recruiter. I cover Vermont and New Hampshire as far as recruitment, minus that Portsmouth area. I am based in Waterbury, Vermont. I've been with the Red Cross for about 3 years in a couple of different capacities. So really excited to chat with you all today about volunteer opportunities. And before we get started, I'll just make a couple of housekeeping notes. I know Teams might be a new platform for a lot of you. No worries. We are still learning more things about Teams every day. But somewhere on your screen, either along the bottom of your window or along the top, you're going to have some functions that you can toggle on and off. So there's a camera function, which is just like a camera icon. You're welcome to turn on or turn off your camera. There's a microphone button. We do ask that you stay muted during the speaking portion of the presentation, but we're going to open it up for questions. And if you raise your hand throughout the session, there's a little hand icon that you can click on, which will show us that you have a question or have a comment you want to make. You're welcome to click that and we'll get to you. And then there's the other function I'll mention is our chat box. So there's a little kind of word blurb. It's like looks like a little comment. I guess you just call it, I don't even know what you call it, a word blurb. Like a little speech outline with a couple of lines in it. You can click on that and that'll open up our chat box on the right side of your screen. And that's a great place if you have questions you don't want to ask out loud. You can throw your questions in there and we'll be monitoring that throughout the meeting. If there's comments you want to make, in a second, I'm going to do a little bit of a poll. And if you'd like to respond within the chat, you can respond there, or you can come off mute and let us know that way. So that's it, and we'll get started kind of with our materials today. So to start, a pulse check, just checking in. So we like to get a little bit of a gauge of who's joined us during our presentation so that we kind of know how to cater the information. So if you are looking for specific information about a specific volunteer opportunity, we can make sure to go into a little bit more detail. Or maybe you're joining us because you just want to learn a little bit more about the Red Cross. We can really cater our presentation to your needs and the information you're seeking. So if you don't mind, either by coming off mute or throwing it in the chat box, just let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, because that can be important. So if you're from Maine, we're going to make sure that Paula follows up with you. If you're from Vermont or New Hampshire, I'm going to follow up. And then if you're from outside of that area, we can connect you with the right volunteer recruitment specialist for you. So, maybe you're in Idaho. That's okay. A lot of our volunteer opportunities today are going to be the same for that state, but we will connect you with a different local contact who can help you out. So thanks, Frank, for introducing yourself. I'm glad to hear you're joining us from New Hampshire and, looking for volunteer opportunities. So we'll talk about a couple of our lines of service where we have some really urgently needed volunteers right now. And we'll go into some details on that. And thank you for joining us, Joan. I see that you just hopped on. Great. So feel free to continue to introduce yourself in the chat, and we'll get started with some of our information today. So it's just kind of going off of that note of, why are you here today? It's nice to think about why do you want to get involved with the Red Cross? So are you looking to make a difference in your community? These are some of the common reasons we come across. Meet new people, build your resume, networking with people within your community. Maybe you have some community service requirements that you need to achieve. We can help you with those goals. So whatever that reason may be, maybe you have a personal connection to the Red Cross. We're happy to have you here. Wonderful. And if you don't mind, just remember to keep yourself on mute because I did notice we were getting a little bit of feedback, but we'll work through it.
Perfect. All right. Well, let me just talk a moment about the Red Cross mission. The Red Cross was founded in 1881 by Clara Barton. She was a nurse that helped very deeply with supporting soldiers during the Civil War. and felt an ongoing need for an organization that would help to prevent human suffering when emergencies struck. And she does that, of course, as we do, by empowering volunteers and the generosity of donors. So you see here a mission that has held true for a very long time and continues to this day. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about our lines of service. We have 5 lines of service. Often people will know more about one or another. Biomedical, our blood donor process, is very popular and well known. I would say also you see us in the news a lot around our disaster services. A little less publicly sung are our training services, which are things like CPR, first aid, babysitting, water safety, all sorts of things to prevent bad things from happening. And then also we have a very robust service to the armed forces, which we'll talk about in detail later. And then international too. We have partners in the International Red Cross, the Red Crescent Society, and we work together around the world to form a global network. One thing we often do, which is suggested here, is an immunization program for children to prevent preventable childhood diseases. So we're a robust organization in every corner. In fact, this is a good graphic to show that. We have a lot of Red Crossers here in the American Red Cross. In fact, we have upwards of 500,000 volunteers, but worldwide, we're more than 7 million. And you can see on that map that we really truly have a footprint as wide as the whole world. So it's a huge organization, but all focused on that same mission. And then you may not realize this, but the reason we have so many volunteer opportunities is that the Red Cross is 90% volunteer run. We have just 10% of us are people who pull you in and make the organization run. But without our volunteers, we would not get really well, I can't even imagine what our life would be like without volunteers. We wouldn't get it done. So it takes volunteers to help us. And our disasters, as many as 62,000 a year. 25,000 support all of the things we do with collecting blood and blood services. We have a large cadre of nurse and nurse volunteers who are part of our health program. And then a sizable portion are our younger volunteers. And that's exciting because disaster is never going to stop. And we need a fresh bunch to be coming along to bring up the next generation, and that's 25% of our volunteer team. So that's good news for us.
Yeah, next we have just a short video clip to kind of really ingrain how essential our volunteers are. So this video has some great examples of the impact that you can have as a volunteer, and we're gonna hope that this works today. We had some challenges with it in our session yesterday evening, but if not, we'll make sure to get you the link so that you can watch it on your own. So we'll see.
Are you hearing it?
I'm not hearing or seeing it. I see the main screen. That's a feeling it's going to be the same issue. So maybe just keep rolling, and I can maybe
all right.
bring it up at the end.
I'll see if I can bring it up later.
Okay. So we'll start off talking about some of our local opportunities that we have available and that are some of our higher needs that we really need to try to fill right now. So first we'll start off with our blood services opportunities, which Paula will talk about.
Exactly. So the position that is most urgently needed right now, and this is really across the nation, a really high need position, is that of what we call the blood donor ambassador. And this volunteer is really the face of the Red Cross at a blood donation site. You're the first person that the incoming donors will see. You're typically the last person they'll see. And so your role is to take a temperature. Folks are told not to come if they're unwell. They will typically take themselves away and keep themselves away if they're not well, but we do take the safety precaution of checking their temperatures to make sure they're normal. We also, in the blood process, once you've donated blood, you sit and recover at a recovery table, which is we call the canteen. And so you would be in a position to make sure that canteen is refreshed and ready for the donors as they come from their donation spot. And then overall, it's a customer service role. We really want blood donors to come, have a very positive experience, and want to come back the next time they're eligible. And so we really count on those blood donor ambassadors to be that emissary to help make sure that the blood donor experience is positive from beginning to end. So that's one of our most needed roles. Many shifts every day in every community across the nation. So hundreds of volunteers needed for that role. And then for a virtual role, if you're not someone who wants to be out at a blood drive, and understandable that that's not good for some people during this pandemic, we do have virtual roles. And this scheduling role is helping blood services again, but you're helping to schedule volunteers to come, to help volunteers sign up. And it's a process that's really computer and phone based. So if you have those tools, it's a fairly straightforward role, but one that's critically important. So scheduling is a virtual stay-at-home role, but very, very important. And then this one is a little bit different. This is also largely virtual, but this is one that is dedicated to volunteers like yourselves who are coming through to do blood donor ambassador and other roles. Working with our training team alone, but you would be assisting with the onboarding of new volunteers. You would be really their point of contact in many ways through their interview process, through their introductions to the whole blood process. And then you'd be making sure that they get the training that they need. So you really are their emissary from beginning to end. It's sort of the similar theme, but this time it's for the onboarding of those new volunteers, much like yourself. And then next up, we'll talk about disaster services, and I'm going to hand that to Erica.
Yeah, so disaster services, we have a lot of volunteers within our disaster action teams on the next slide. And this is a role that's really needed statewide. So we have teams of volunteers placed in every community that are able to respond if there's a local emergency. And for us, a lot of times those emergencies end up being home fires, which are, one of our most frequent responses. And we are not headed out as Red Crossers to fight fires, but we do go out to support the clients who've been affected by the fires, as well as the emergency personnel on site. So sometimes the firefighters can be battling a fire for hours on hours, depending on how large the damage is. So we're able to send out Red Cross volunteers to support and set up a canteen area where we're offering food and snacks and drinks to make sure that they have what they need to do their job. But then also with those clients, we want to go out and make sure that we're providing Red Cross services to make sure that they have their most basic needs met. So if anybody's ever lost their home, I'm sure you know that it's, really a traumatic experience. You lose your possessions, you lose, that comfort of having a home. And in some cases, there could be loss of life. So we want to make sure that that experience is not as bad as it could be. So we want to make sure that you have a place to stay that night, that you have food, that you have clothes on your back, that you're getting connected with other community resources, maybe connecting with somebody on our health services team to get medications that you might have lost in that fire. So these disaster action team members are trained, and then you take on-call shifts from home. So you'll pick days and times that work for you. You schedule ahead of time, weeks out, and say, Friday night, you're on call. If there happens to be an emergency on call on Friday night, then you would be one of the Red Cross volunteers that goes out and responds and works with those clients to get them the support they need. So that's pretty much the gist of that role. If anybody's specifically interested in this, when we get to questions, I'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts are about that role and questions you have before considering participating. But generally, those volunteers are going to take on 2 to 3 on-call shifts per month. So having volunteers across each of our states take on a shift every day of the week, 24 hours a day, we're able to have full coverage. So if something happens at any time, we're able to respond. And then also within our disaster cycle services, you can go into some specialty roles where you can put more specialized training to use. So one of the most common roles within disaster cycle services, aside from our disaster action team members, is our recovery caseworkers. So we have those DAT members that are going out immediately when the disaster is happening, but then what happens with that client after the fact, you know, a couple weeks down the road, a month down the road? Well, we have caseworkers that reach out and work with that client to make sure that they're on a proper recovery path and have the resources that they need, and they're connected with the proper community resources. So if you have interest in casework, or maybe you already have skills in that area or would like to build skills in that area, we do have that casework role for you. Again, that time commitment varies. Generally, you take on shifts similar to the disaster action team role, and we'll have caseworkers that are on call in case needed, and then some regular tasks that come along with that casework. Part of that, as the caseworker, you'll help with mission cards. So if a client needs to go to a hotel for the night, we get them a credit card, we cover the cost for them, so you're helping with providing those credit cards. And then we have, within the health field, we have a few different options where you can get involved. So if you are a chaplain, we have a spiritual care role where you can work in that capacity with our clients as well as our volunteers. We have volunteers that respond to larger national disasters. So earlier this year, I had a chance to go down to Louisiana following Hurricane Laura. We had hundreds of volunteers down there, and that's really hard work. It can be really difficult for the volunteers, and it's surely really difficult for the people who've been displaced by the hurricane and they're staying in a shelter with us. So having spiritual care on hand to talk to people and just check in with them is really important. And we have our mental health services and our health services. So if you have specialty training, certification in either of those areas, maybe you're an LNA, an RN, a clinical psychologist, we can work with you to put those skills to use within the Red Cross realm. So working with our clients, working with our volunteers to make sure that we're providing those health services. So those are our disaster specialty roles. There are others, but we just wanted to highlight a few today. We could definitely talk about number of roles, but we just don't have time for that. But on the next slide, we are going to take a moment to talk about services to the armed forces. So I'll let you take that away, Paula.
Absolutely. It's a long historical connection between us and the armed services, and we have a lot of ways that we interact with them. But one very common and helpful and needed role is that of service to the armed forces caseworker. And this is a role that is a weekly time commitment. It's typically 2 to 3 hours. It depends on the demand. It depends on what's going on, but it's definitely a weekly situation. And it's a matter of reaching out to military members and their families to provide casework, to provide resource conversation and ideas. It's really a wonderful way to support those that have supported our nation. So it's a combination of their families and the service members themselves, but there's a lot of resources that are available to them that they're not always aware of. And if someone's in a tough moment, it's hard for them to think about those resources. So it's a matter of us being that helping support and being there when they need them, and also making sure that they're aware of the programs that are available to them, because there are a number and of good use. So that's a wonderful position if you have a sweet spot around the armed services or those who have been great contributors to our national security. And then we've said over and over, there are many, many roles at the Red Cross. The fact that we are 90% staffed by volunteers leads me to say that there are volunteers at every level of our organization. Many of our most senior people have volunteer partners. There's a role for anyone and everyone, and that's true in these areas here. Some of our most common things are in the fundraising realm. We're always looking for folks that can help us with that. It can be as simple as stuffing envelopes, but it could be way more complicated than that and be something like reaching out to your own corporate relationships. There's a variety of things you can do there. We have our near and dear volunteer services roles there. We have people that help and I reach out and do recruitment help, but we also have a team of people that support volunteers while they're in service, and that team is always looking for help too. We do a lot to make sure that our current volunteers know that they're appreciated and that they are absolutely supported by our engagement team. So that's a wonderful role for someone that likes to be involved with others. Community outreach, if you're someone who knows your community inside and out, you love to talk to people, you love to make connections, you love to connect them with the Red Cross, there's a wonderful role there for you. You often would work with our executive directors. It's a wonderful way to be a bridge for us that's really critical as we try to reach every community. When it comes to clubs and internships, that would be something that would be more akin to your college students, or if you are a college student. And also high school level clubs for Red Cross have gotten, there's a great structure for those. If you're interested in those, please let us know. We can connect you with one of our engagement specialists who would be able to help you with that. And then board members. We are always seeking board members, those of you that are placed in your community in such a way. Again, it's a lot like the community outreach. If you're someone who loves to connect with people, find resources, be a part of a team, there's always a role for you here at the Red Cross, no doubt about it. And then Erica?
And then also, if you're looking to get involved with a group, maybe you're a part of your local Rotary Club or a church group, maybe you work for a company that's interested in getting a group of employees together to volunteer, we do have a couple of opportunities. I'd say that these opportunities are limited right now with COVID, and we're just not able to get groups together in the capacity that we have in the past. So one of the first opportunities we'd usually talk about is our Sound the Alarm campaign. And this is a campaign where we have been identifying communities that could use support by way of installing free smoke alarms for families. So our goal here is to prevent lives lost due to home fires. One way to do that is having a smoke alarm in your home and making sure that you're alerted if there's such an emergency so you can get your family out safely. So we've taken on this campaign for a few years now. We had to postpone it last spring. We're not sure yet if we will be postponing it this spring, but we wanted to put the word out there just in case we're able to hold it. We will need volunteers, so you can volunteer individually for the event if we're coming to your area, as well as if you have a group of employees or a group from your community that wants to come in and support us for the day. There'll be some opportunities. So you'll hear more about that from us once we know if we're holding that event. But you're also welcome to reach out and just say, hey, I'm interested in that. If you hold it, let me know. Blood drive sponsorship. So we are always, especially now as we've had to close a lot of blood drive locations due to COVID, and making sure that the locations that we're using for blood drives are compliant and allow us to properly socially distance. We're looking for blood drive sites. So if you have a site in your community that you're connected with, maybe your church, maybe the place where you work, you can help us sponsor a blood drive. So you would do everything from helping identify that location, also helping provide volunteers. So whether that's bringing in outside groups or bringing in a group of employees from that work site. And then ensuring that we are able to fill our blood donor schedule for that day. So you'd want to help us advertise, get donors to come in for that event. And that can be a great way for businesses and other community groups to participate. And then lastly, similarly, Ready When the Time Comes volunteers. And it's very much like it sounds. And Ready When the Time Comes is referring to disasters. So we want to make sure that we have people that are ready in each of our communities that are able to respond if something is to happen, whether it's flooding or a large windstorm. If we need to open up a shelter, we have to make sure that we have volunteers in the community that can help us. Because a lot of times our volunteer groups within a single community and the number of shifts and the number of people you need to operate a shelter, those people would get burnt out very quickly. So we need extra hands, extra support in those bigger scale events. So we will work to train a group, whether, again, just like the others, a church group, a school group, other community group, a business. We are happy to train you so that you have a group of individuals in your community that's ready in case anything like that happens. Also, Paula, I was going to try really quickly, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I did pull up the video, and I'm just going to see. I'm going to see if it lets me share it.
Okay.
I'm hoping you can see YouTube.
I'll be so pleased.
Can you see it?
I think I'm gonna. I have your black screen there. Oh, wait, here it comes. Oh.
Give me just one moment.
Yep.
I swear I'm not going to waste too much time on it. I just realized, though, when I shared it, I did not have it include the sound. So let me do that one more time.
Sure. I'd love to see you tackle.
I'm gonna click play and just shout if it doesn't seem to be working.
I've got it. Got it.
It's been therapeutic to record what I go through on a day-to-day basis.
I just remember thinking, what am I going to do? I have a newborn. I can't lose my wife.
What they did for me was give me that break to be able to get it together.
Hi. Comfort to me is knowing that out there, her life still goes on, and those recipients.
And once you hit rock bottom, there's only one way to go from there.
People know that there is always hope.
Regardless of where you're at in your life, you just don't know what's going to happen or who's going to be there to help you.
It still hurts, and I just want it to be okay.
You gave me life.
I look down at my hands and realize I'm doing CPR.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this guy.
There's a lesson to be learned. Life is short. Make it worthwhile.
Can you see me? Wonderful. So again, just highlighting how essential our volunteers are. Those people who've been affected by the Red Cross mission, that wouldn't happen without our volunteers out in the field. So I'm really excited that we have folks on the call today that are interested in joining us or maybe have just recently joined us because you're going to be able to make an impact. Just next, so to make you restart from the beginning, but we will get it caught up and continue on.
There's got to be a better way, but until we find it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Not catching up. Oops. Oops, there we go. Oh, that was the one.
Yeah, so while we have you, I know that COVID is a big part of the discussion, and folks tend to have a lot of questions around this. So I did want to just take a moment to let you know that we are following CDC guidelines within our volunteer roles currently, within our blood drives and our other service delivery. We are following a cover, distance, and clean motto. So we are requiring face masks within any of our Red Cross facilities, at our blood drives, if you are volunteering out in the field. distancing, and then also cleaning precautions. So we have implemented new disinfecting protocols within our facilities and at our events to make sure that we are being safe, and we're not only keeping ourselves safe, our volunteers safe, our clients safe, everybody that we're interacting with. Also, COVID has presented a unique opportunity to move all of our trainings virtual. So currently with the Red Cross, you will not take in-person trainings, which is really almost a blessing, because now you don't have to wait for a training to happen to get engaged in a certain role. You're able to hop online, log into our training platform, and take a training at your pace. So whether it takes you a couple days to complete it, you have to sit down over a couple of lunch breaks and do it, you're able to go in and do that at your pace, and fulfill those requirements before you get out in the field. And then mission delivery, we are making sure that we continue to provide the mission that we've set out, and all of our services that we've set out to provide to our communities. So you will still see us around. We're still holding blood drives. We are still responding to disasters. We are still working with military population and their families, reconnecting refugees with their families. So those are just services that we're making sure that we continue to provide during this time.
So how do you get involved in all this great stuff? Well, here's the link that you can follow, and we'll have this at this point and at the end as well. So we'll make sure it's very visible. I think Erica's even going to put it in the chat box for us, if I know Erica. So this is the link that you can follow. It will take you to our application, and then let me just show you kind of what happens next. Once you submit that application online, there's several steps there. It's easy to do both on a laptop or even on a smartphone. It's been adjusted so that it should be very easy to access on either style of device. Then once you've submitted, you wait to hear from a screener. The screener will talk with you. It's a brief conversation. They talk with you about your interests. They make sure that you know enough about the role to be picking it and have the right schedule for it. They'll have a lovely conversation with you. They're great volunteers. They love talking to incoming volunteers. They will get your background check started, and then once that comes, they will refer you to your department. So whatever role you've picked, there will be a department that you're associated with, and also a supervisor. Throughout your time at the Red Cross, you will always have people to turn to. You'll always have a supervisor. You'll always have a number of supports available to you, and the training to back up your service. So there's never a time that you should ever feel under-supported at the Red Cross. It's a very, very supportive organization in that way. You will then take that online training, and your supervisor will be able to coach you in what you need to do. And then last but not least, you'll sign up to do whatever shift or role you've agreed to do. If it's working with as a caseworker for SAF, you'll sign up for your day and time. If it's a blood donor shift, you'll go online and you'll pick the times that work for you. But there'll be some function that you'll become very aware of once you're into the system as to how to actually access your role. And then last but not least, a little plug for something very near and dear to us. You'll see once you're into Volunteer Connection, that's our online volunteer system where you'll have your own profile. In that profile, there's a bright red button that says log your hours. And in fact, the reason we ask you to log your hours is twofold. One is we just need to know what you're up to. We need to know how many volunteers are working, how many hours, but also we absolutely appreciate our volunteers. And once we know someone is doing service and we can capture that information, you can be sure that you'll be thanked for your service. And that runs hand in hand with you logging your hours. So it's something that we really, really do stress because it's an important component within our system of support. And then I'm going to hand it to Erica.
Just like to end our that way we kind of know what to expect. So with the folks that are with us today, I'm just curious. So what are you going to do with the information you've learned today? And there's some options. Of course, there's more options than what I have listed here, but I'm curious, are you planning to share this information with a friend, colleague, or family member because you find, maybe volunteering isn't for you, but you can pass on that knowledge to somebody else? Are you going to sign up to volunteer? Maybe you already have for some of you. or maybe just keep it in mind for the future. You know, maybe it's not quite what you thought it would be. Maybe you're not right, you know, right now. It's just not a good time to get involved and take on a new commitment. But you want to keep it in mind for, you know, the new year. Or maybe, you know, nothing. Maybe there's nothing you can do with this information, though I think maybe you can at least share it. And maybe it's a combination of these. So if you, you know, want to throw a note in the chat box, if you want to come off mute, just let us know. Just to hear that feedback, so we kind of know what to expect, and we can make sure to follow up with those who, you know, say they're going to sign up. Then we can make sure we reach out and get you engaged. And wonderful, great, Frank. It's great to hear that you already have a screening call set up, and no worries that you have to head out. That is totally understandable. And Beth, I see you have your hand up.
My hand is up. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. I had actually tried to do the application for doing some, I have a background in volunteer management, and I was very interested. It was a different branch, and I'm blanking on exactly where it was, but again, it was a remote opportunity to be involved in screening and recruitment. But when I tried the application, it never would give me a code or a number, and I gave up and got letters saying I didn't have time to call IT. I really didn't. It was very busy last week and I didn't have any time to do it. And then got an email, it's too late. You know, we're holding you on hold maybe. So I'm still interested in that role. I'm in New York City, if that's of any help, but I assume that can be done virtually.
Okay. Yeah, Beth. So
I just wanted to ask that because I'm really interested in that kind of role.
Mm-hmm.
So there are it has to be remote for me.
Yeah. No worries at all. So
it might not be. That sounds like it would be. That's my sense.
Yeah. So what happens, so just for everybody's awareness, so when folks start an application and if it sits, at a point it'll go inactive. So we keep it in our system, but we put it on hold. So we can easily reactivate that. So we can look into that for you, Beth. We'll reactivate it and we can get you instructions sent on how to log back in and finish your steps. We generally, volunteers will sign up to serve in the area that they reside in. So we'll look to the New York City area and see if they have volunteer services opportunities. And then if not, we can work on getting you signed up for Northern New England. We're your neighbors, and we'd be happy to have you join us virtually to work with our volunteer services team, whether in engagement or recruitment or volunteer screening. So I'm making a note.
I think it was more screening, but I was volunteer engagement. Is that involving talking to volunteers, seeing how things are going, or what? Tell me again what the volunteer engagement role is.
Yeah, so we have within volunteer services, we have broken it out into our recruitment team and our engagement team. And part of engagement is screening volunteers, and then a few other functions. So like appreciation and recognition. So if you are interested in helping plan recognition events for our volunteers, that's something you can do with engagement. If you're interested in following up with volunteers that are becoming inactivated and communicating with them, that could be a part of engagement. So it's a little bit of a mix, and it really depends on what you're interested in.
But both areas interest me. I guess I need to see more of a breakdown and talk about it further, but I would love to do something along those lines for you or here, wherever the path takes me.
Perfect. No, that's wonderful, Beth. That's good to hear. We'll follow up with an email, and if you want to schedule a phone call with us, we can do a phone call. But we've marked it down so that we don't lose that information. Did anybody else? I think our next slide is questions. So Beth, you kicked us off with questions. So are there any others floating out there? I know we had some folks interested in blood services. Anything specific?
Nice.
Can I just ask again? I assume blood services are on site. There's nothing. I'm looking. I'm in my 70s, to be honest. So I can only do remote. Now at this point in New York, it's like they're telling everybody to stay home.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
I need something I can do from home as much as I would love to do something live and in the field.
Yeah, so Paula had shared a couple of our blood services opportunities that are virtual. Paula, did you just want to re-highlight what those were?
Yeah, I would say sort of in line with what you're talking about in terms of supporting volunteers. You could be a scheduler, which would be calling people and getting them to sign up for blood drives to serve, or a training role. And that's behind the scenes. It's working with those new volunteers to help them get up to speed and well-trained and well-placed. So those are both within biomed or blood services, and they're both virtual. So those could be good for you, Beth, if you want to stay at home, which I understand perfectly.
I have no choice according to our governor and our mayor.
Yep. No, I think it's you're making the right choice.
Also, we're
That's
kind of
good.
back to the spring, unfortunately. Maybe not as virulent illness, but they're asking people my age to like do very little outdoors.
Yep. No, that's very wise. And I think we have a number of virtual roles, especially now, but we always have a number of virtual roles that would suit you well. So we'll be in touch. We'll figure that out for you.
I'm sorry to take up so much time.
Oh, no, we're
not at all. That's
glad
why
you're
we're
here.
Thank you.
So, Randy, it's awesome to hear that you have signed up for your first blood donor ambassador shift. We're going to be excited to have you. You mentioned in your comment that you're excited. It's good to hear that there'll be a supervisor there to assist. And I just wanted to clarify, just to have your expectations correct. So you likely have already been assigned a supervisor. So if you are in Vermont or New Hampshire by chance, you will have heard from Alice Drizzlane will be your supervisor. And if you're in Maine, Richard Fifield will be your supervisor. And they are our supervisors for our blood donor ambassadors. So realistically, they cannot be at every blood drive every day of the week, all over each of our states. So they will be your point of contact. When you're at the drives, there's always, and they're not necessarily going to be at the drive, but at each blood drive, there's always a head phlebotomist that's on staff, and they know, exactly what's going on with the blood donor ambassador role. So if you arrive to a drive, it's your first one, you're a little bit nervous probably, you don't know what you're doing yet, you will have that head phlebotomist or another one of her staff members to just kind of take you around, kind of show you the ropes so you know what's going on. And then oftentimes you might be there with another blood donor ambassador who's a seasoned veteran, and they can kind of show you the ropes and, just so you know what to expect and you know where things are and you know exactly what you need to do to make sure that the blood drive runs smoothly. So just so you know.
That's great. I was a little concerned about that, being brand new and getting there and going, what do I do?
Yeah.
You can watch
they'll be watching for you.
video, but it doesn't help as much as in person.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we always try to have that in-person component where it's, just kind of a quick on-the-job training. So taking you through the stations. And it's great to ask questions, if you're curious about that process. So people are donating blood. How is it getting to the patients who need it? So I encourage you to ask those questions when you're there, just so you get a full picture of how the process works.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions floating around out there? And you're always welcome. Our contact information, you're always welcome to questions via email or with a phone call. And we'll all stop talking for a good 7 seconds to make sure you can pop in if you have a question. But otherwise, thank you. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So much.
Yeah, of course.
Love meeting you.
Thank you. Same here. And all the best to everyone here.
Thank you.
Alrighty, I don't think we have any more questions. And Beth, we will be absolutely sure to reach out to you. So just keep an eye on your email.
I always do. Yeah, and you've put it into it, so I know your address is in my book.
Perfect.
Right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, take care. Enjoy.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Very much a pleasure.
Yeah, and stay safe.
Thank you. Yeah, you bet.
Bye, Beth. We'll be in touch.
You bet. Take good care. I'm not
You
sure how
too.
to leave it. I'll figure it
Take
out.
care.
Bye.
You just
How do
exit
I
and
get-
it'll
I'm not sure how to get out, but I'm just going to exit out.
Okay.
I've never been on this particular platform.
No worries. Awesome. That was great. Let me stop recording again. I did it. So I decided